Chapter 7, Grizzles' Strange Companion. Watching the enraged female buffalo gallop toward Turk and Flora, I realized that they would be torn to pieces in minutes. Quickly, I raised my double-barreled gun and fired. The buffalo fell dead only a few feet away from the terrified dogs. "Good shooting, Father," cried Ernest, as the boys rushed forward to observe the slain animal. "Now, are you going to kill the little buffalo too?" "No," I said, "with Grizzle lost and probably gone for good, I will need this fellow to take his place. Come, help me tie his legs." Excuse me. Whew. This done, I took a pocket knife and cut a small hole in the buffalo's nostrils, to which I inserted a string. Naturally, the creature was furious. However, the pain in his nose and the rope around his legs prevented him from running away. The first time I pulled the cord and I saw my prisoner was docile and ready for the long march home. Our entry into the camp was a triumphant one indeed. Elizabeth and Francis could hardly believe their eyes as we strutted in proudly with the shaggy buffalo. On Fritz's shoulders sat two beautiful birds, one he had captured on the homeward trail. One was a green parrot and the other a Malabar eagle, which he had blindfolded to prevent it from attacking anyone. "What a trip you've had!" exclaimed Elizabeth. "But surely acquiring this buffalo is your greatest accomplishment." "Papa, Papa," cried Francis, running alongside the buffalo, "what are you going to do with him?" "Right now, I'm just going to tie him up with the cow and see how they get along." "Maybe we should feed him first," Jack suggested, and he handed the newcomer some milk and sliced roots. Greedily, the buffalo devoured it all and began browsing peacefully next to the cow. "Fritz, where are you going to put all your birds?" Ernest asked. "Over here," Fritz answered, and he fastened both the parrot and the eagle to the same root, but foolishly removed the blindfold from the eagle's eyes. The eagle flew into a rage and killed the poor parrot. "Bad bird," Fritz screamed. "I'm going to break that neck of yours." "Wait," Ernest cried. "You can always find another parrot, but you can never find such a magnificent hunter as this eagle. Properly trained, it will be able to catch many birds for us. Let me have it, and it will soon be as submissive as a new puppy." With that, Ernest lit up a pipe and began to blow this tobacco smoke into the eagle's face. "This is an old trick used by the Carib Indians," he told us. "Once their eagles became senseless from the smoke, the Indians were able to tame them." "You've killed him," yelled Fritz, as the bird stood motionless on his perch. "How could he be dead and still be standing?" Ernest retorted. "He'll come out of the trance in a minute." And Ernest was right. Soon the bird opened its eyes and looked at us in surprise. Its anger was gone, and in only a few days, it was tame. Amazingly enough, we were able to repeat this same procedure not long afterwards. Elizabeth, feeling that the rope ladder was dangerous, urged me to build a set of winding stairs inside the hollowed tree trunk. When I first chopped into the tree, hundreds of bees swarmed out, buzzing menacingly and stinging the children. "Why not try putting the bees in a stupor, like we did with the eagle?" Fritz suggested. "All right," I said. The scheme worked beautifully. Once the bees were asleep, we cut their combs loose and put them into some gourds, which we nailed to a nearby tree. The bees found their brand new hives. We had an abundant supply of delicious honey, and in a month's time, Elizabeth had her winding stairs. All right, let's take a look at this. Oh, going backwards. Oh, all right, so Grizzle's Strange Companion. We're going to meet another animal, but I think my next slide is going to be, okay, inside, they're going to have dug hollowed out the inside of that giant tree, where they're made, instead of climbing up the ladder now to get to their tree house, they've got an inside kind of staircase going up through it. And they've taken the things from the ship that they brought back in all of their trips back and forth, and they've kind of created like a luxury, like a little house up in these trees with all these different rooms. And so here's one of the rooms in their tree house where they've got furniture. Here's from the ships, the big wheel. They've got tables, they brought chairs, they brought a piano type organ thing, it looks like, in, and lots of different furniture and things that were on the ship. So this is just a picture of what one of the rooms in their treehouse looks like. It was a time of great prosperity at Falcon's Nest. Elizabeth spent her days at a handsome loom, weaving cloth from the fibers of the flax plants we discovered. The boys and I were busy planting crops and constructing a fountain. We even built a stable to house our growing family of animals. The pig had given birth to a litter of 7 piglets. The hens had produced 40 chicks, and the goats 2 kids, and the sheep 5 lambs. To top it all off, Flora was now the mother to 6 newborn puppies. Then one day we had still another stroke of luck. We were just nailing the door of the captain's cabin onto the tree opening of the winding stairs when we heard a terrible howling in the distance. Collecting our guns, we ran in to see what was causing all of the disturbance. Why, it's Grizzle. I'm going to back up now. Oopsie, forward. All right. It's Grizzle, Fritz called. He's coming home. The mule moved toward us leisurely, stopping every now and then to nibble some grass. Well, what's that with him? Asked Frances. I think it's an onagra, I said. What's an onagra? A wild donkey, I explained. They travel in herds in the hot, dry plains of Western Asia. Look at those yellow patches on each thigh. It's a little hard for us to see that from here, but it would kind of be this area back in here. So it looks kind of like a cross between a mule and a horse, actually. And the black stripe down his back, and you can kind of see that up here in the picture. And look at the funny tail with the fuzzy tufts of hair on the end of it. So that's back here, exclaimed Ernest. The 2 animals were very close to us now. Fritz, holding a noose in his hand, moved softly forward and offered Grizzle some oats. As the wild donkey saw his companion gobble up this strange food, he edged closer too. At that point, Fritz threw the noose over his head. The onagra was ours. Everyone clapped their hands and danced for joy. Now, boys, I said, we must try to tame and train him, just as we did the buffalo. It's not going to be easy, so I hope you're ready for a real challenge. All right, so chapter 7, we have now our animal collection has almost kind of doubled, if not tripled, because all these animals keep having babies, it seems like. And they continue to add more animals to kind of their collection there as they keep building and really kind of growing their little house into almost like a little community of all of their things. So we've got another kind of horse added to our collection here. So let's take a look at chapter 8, The Grotto That Time Forgot. Chapter 8, The Grotto That Time Forgot. The beautiful female onagra soon became our most prized possession. The boys were amazed to learn her coat would change from cinnamon to pale yellow-brown during the rainy season. We all agreed that she was the most unusual animal of her species we'd ever seen. Her training was, as I expected, a tedious undertaking. Nips, our monkey, was her first rider. He stuck so tightly to her back that in spite of the onagra's plunging and kicking, he was not thrown. Let me try now, begged Frances. After all, I'm the smallest one in the family. Although I gave my consent, I was careful to lead the donkey with a halter so that no harm would come to my son. I'm next, insisted Jack, but he landed only a few minutes later, unhurt and in the sand. Ernest, Fritz, and I followed suit, but we were soon dizzy and exhausted from the frantic galloping. Fritz, however, didn't give up. Over and over again, he mounted the wild donkey and rode off. I'm going to go back to that picture for a second, back in chapter 7. Go all the way here. So the boys are all trying to be able to take a wild horse and ride it. You have to, it's called breaking a horse, and you don't really break it, but it's going to be like, it would mean like taming it, making it so that it's not afraid. Horses aren't naturally used to just having someone get on their back and start riding them. So that would be really unusual. It'd be like if somebody jumped on your back, you'd kind of like lean back and maybe try to push them off. So horses are going to try to get you off their back until they realize that, okay, this isn't that bad and you're not trying to hurt me, and And so this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to tame this horse. So Fritz didn't give up. Over and over again, he mounted the wild donkey and rode off. Finally, the onagra got accustomed to us and was quite tame. We chose the name Lightfoot for her because of her incredible strength and swiftness. To this day, I can still picture Fritz on the back of Lightfoot as they tore up and down the beach with the speed of lightning. This pleasant way of life ended abruptly with the arrival of the rainy season, which was our winter. The rain fell in such heavy torrents that it turned the entire countryside into one big lake. The winds blew so furiously that they deluged our bed with rain and threatened to carry us away. Now remember, they are living up in a tree. Let me go back to this. So in fact, so they're living up in this tree, but the rain is so strong and the wind is blowing so hard that, it's not like they have glass windows or anything. So it really just kind of blows in, and it's really keeping them very wet. We had no choice but to move from the treehouse into the stable that we had built between the roots below. Crowded together in the dark, we were nearly sick from the foul odor of the livestock. In addition, we were stifled by smoke whenever we kindled a fire and drenched with rain when we opened the doors. Week after week, we were prisoners inside the barn. For the first time, Elizabeth was obviously upset. "We simply will have to build another winter home elsewhere," she stated. "You're right," I replied. I don't think any of us could go through this again." "We could still use the treehouse for a summer residence," she went on. "After all, we do love it there." "Agreed, my dear." "Listen to this," Fritz said as he leafed through a book he had found in the bottom of a chest. "Robinson Crusoe cut his home out of solid rock. Why can't we do the same thing?" "We can," Ernest said. "How about the rocks on the other side of the island? They just might suit our purpose." As soon as the gloomy weeks of rain had ended and we had gotten Falcon's Nest in order, we set out to investigate the rocks behind Tent House. Here we found that the ravages of winter weather had taken their toll too. The winds and rain had beaten down the tent and scattered our provisions hither and yon. Luckily, our sailing boat was still in anchor, but the tugboat was completely shattered. "I will certainly be glad when we have more solid winter quarters, I told the boys. "We'd better get right to work," said Fritz. I had to confess to the boys that I had my doubts about carving a home, out of the stone rocks. "However," I added, "I'm willing to give it a try." Wielding pickaxes, chisels, and hammers, and iron levers, we set to work at an enchanting spot that faced Providence Bay, Jackal's River, and the family bridge. With the charcoal, I marked the opening we wished to make, and the boys then began hammering away. At first, the progress was monotonous and slow, but as we advanced, the rock became softer. When we had cut into it about a foot, we were able to loosen the rock with a spade, it's like a shovel, just as if it were dried mud. After several days of hard work, we had penetrated 7 feet into the rock. Then one day, as Fritz was carting out a wheelbarrow full of rock and dirt, Jack cried out, "Father, we've pierced through all the way. Come and see." The boys lit some candles, and holding them high, we advanced forward in one solemn procession. Okay, so they found an area that had rock. They began chipping away at the front of it, and as they went further, it got easier and easier, okay? So, the most beautiful and magnificent spectacle awaited us. Our candles illuminated a large grotto, and a grotto is going to be like a cave, okay? Whose sides sparkled in the flickering light like a sea of diamonds. Hundreds of crystals of every length and shape hung from the top of the caverns and joined with those on the bottom. Okay, now this is a little harder to see in black and white, but you can see them inside the cave. They've kind of made like a little bit of a torch so they have some light, but there's going to be structures coming down from the roof of inside a cave. Still, there are stalactites and stalagmites and different kind of like rock formations, okay? So this is kind of where they're at. They've kind of chipped this hole in, and it literally then led them into an already existing cave. "It's like a palace of a great European king," cried Fritz. "Or the temple of a Roman god," added Jack. "One thing is certain," I told them. "No man has ever set foot in here before. It has been hidden away from civilization since time began." "What do you think this is, Father?" asked Ernest, breaking off one of the crystals that hung down from the ceiling. "It's salt," I exclaimed in delight. "Boys, we have discovered a salt mine." "Well, will we be able to live here?" asked Fritz anxiously. "I mean, with the salt?" "Of course we will," I answered. "If you notice, the floor is level and covered with a fine white sand. The cavern itself is tight and dry. Why, it's the perfect site for our winter home." However, we continued to live at Falcon's Nest for many months. During this time, we converted the grotto into a comfortable residence that would house not only our family, but our growing brood of animals as well. On one side, we constructed a stable and a workroom that would accommodate the livestock, their feed, and all of our provisions and equipment. On the other side was our home, which consisted of a bedroom for Elizabeth and myself, a bedroom for the boys, a dining room, and a kitchen. Here we built a fireplace and a chimney that extended through the roof, with the exception of the dining room. Each room had a window which we chiseled out of the rock. Felsenheim, or the dwelling in the rock, was the name of our new home. We soon realized that we had made a smart move, for the surrounding area was full of an endless supply of fish and game. Immense turtles visited the shores to deposit their eggs, and schools of salmon and sturgeon swelled the bay. Large cranes flying through the cornfield were frequently captured by Fritz's sharp-eyed eagle, while kangaroos were seen jumping in and out of the sugarcane. One afternoon, as we wandered through the woods, we came upon a grove of bushes that appeared to be covered with snowflakes. Fritz darted into them with light foot and returned with his hands full of fluffy tufts. "Father," he cried, "is this what I think it is?" All right. Again, many things have happened in this chapter. So they had the winter weather, they had the heavy rain, they ended up moving or finding a new place that they worked a long time on or worked hard on to be able to create a whole nother home for themselves. So first they had the tent house, and then they have their giant tree house, and now they've got a new home, their winter home, which will be in this salt cave. So they're out and they continue to discover new things about their island. Seems like every week or so they find either new animals, new plants, new types of seeds, new types of food sources. So anybody have a guess as to what he might have found that he was able to come back with something white and fluffy in his hands? See if you can make a prediction as to what you think this might be. All right. Chapter 9, a holiday, then horror. So if you had a chance to try to think about what this might be that he found, take a look at this. Does anybody know what this is that they discovered? Let's see what they find out. I exclaimed. The soft, fluffy balls that Fritz handed me then announced, "Why, it's cotton." "Cotton!" exclaimed Francis. "What's cotton?" "It's a plant from which most of our clothes are made," Fritz told him with great authority. "Come," I said to Elizabeth, "take a look. This discovery is going to make life here a lot easier." "Indeed it will," she answered. "Let's bring home all we can." Okay, now remember though, to go from this sweater, I'm sure is made of cotton, to go from this to this is really not a simple process, especially when you're living on a desert island. But I don't know, these guys are pretty talented, so maybe they've got a plan and they got this figured out. The ripe pods had burst open and the wind had scattered their contents all over the ground. Some of the white fluff had gathered in the bushes while the rest floated gently in the air. Working quickly, we collected as much cotton as our bags would hold. In the meantime, Elizabeth filled her pockets with seeds to plant in her garden above Tent House. "You know," I said as we trudged homeward, "this is an important occasion, not just because we discovered cotton, but for another reason too. According to my calculations, tomorrow will be our 2nd anniversary on the island." "Is this really true?" Elizabeth asked. I can hardly believe so much time has passed. So second anniversary would mean second year, 2 years they've been on the island. It is true, my dear. Think of all the adventures we have had and how good God has been to us. I'm going to declare tomorrow a holiday, a special day of celebration. You mean we're going to have a party? Cried Frances, jumping for joy. Oh, I can hardly wait. Actually, Frances didn't have to wait long. For when the morning dawned, Elizabeth and I had the entire day's festivities planned. Here they are. Kind of like, here's father and mother. They're kind of like the king and queen of the big party, the big extravaganza. And here's one of the big dogs. All right. Greetings, my sons, on the lawn beneath the falcon's nest. I said, you boys have been practicing wrestling, running, swimming, shooting, and horseback riding here on the island for the past 2 years. Now we're going to see who are the champions of these various feats. And so the competitions began, with Elizabeth cheering the boys on and Turk and Flora running alongside them. Unquestionably, the highlight of the day was the horseback riding event. Fritz mounted Lightfoot and Ernest rode Grizzle, but they were no match for Jack's skillful handling of the wild buffalo. A practiced groom could not have managed a thoroughbred horse with more grace and ease. Jack, my boy, I boomed out, I hereby declare you the winner of this contest. No, Papa, interrupted Frances. You haven't seen what I can do yet. And into the arena rode Francis, mounted on his young buffalo bull, Broman, who was only 4 months old. Elizabeth had made a saddle of kangaroo skin and stirrups that adjusted to Francis' little legs. There he sat, a whip in his right hand and his animal's bridle in his left hand. With his brothers urging him on, Francis proceeded to maneuver his steed beautifully. Around and around the ring they went with the buffalo, obeying instructions to the letter. Francis, I said, I'm really proud of you. What an expert horseman you've become. When the contests were over, we hurried to the grotto, which was ablaze with torches. Elizabeth, as queen of the day, was seated in a special elevated chair, decorated with flowers. As I called the boys forward to receive their prizes, she gave each one a kiss on the forehead. Fritz, I began, you are our champion swimmer and expert shot. This English rifle and hunting knife are your rewards. Thank you, Father, he said, coming forward to claim his prizes. I shall always cherish them as a remembrance of this day. Ernest, I continued, you are without a doubt our best runner. Please accept this gold watch for your own. And Jack, these steel spurs are yours for your outstanding horsemanship. Thank you, Father, both boys said with big grins. Now, Francis, I haven't forgotten you, I assured him. For your skill in riding your buffalo, I present you with these new stirrups and a box of colors. Congratulations, son. Thank you, Papa, he said, shaking my hand firmly. This is the best holiday I have ever had. Turning to Elizabeth, I slipped my arm around her waist. My dear, this sewing box is my gift to you. Thank you for all of your courage and support during the last 2 years. There were tears in her eyes as Elizabeth opened the box and fingered the needles, thread, and scissors inside. Thank you, she whispered. I think this has been my favorite holiday, too. And so our day of celebration ended on a very happy note. The next morning, we were all back to work since we were well aware that the rainy season was close at hand. For safety's sake, we usually worked in pairs. However, at noontime, Jack mounted Grizzle and rode off alone to Flamingo Marsh. Here we hoped to find some thin willow twigs with which to build nests for our pigeons. As he reached the outskirts of the swamp, he heard nothing but the mournful cry of a whippoorwill. He proceeded in slowly on foot, stopping occasionally to examine the rushes. To his dismay, they were much too thick to cut. Deeper and deeper into the swamp, Jack went suddenly. He came to a spot where there was a mass of soft, black mud. Oh dear, ooh, he muttered to himself. This isn't the way I want to go. And as he turned to retrace his steps, his feet slipped and he fell into the mud. Before he knew what was happening, he was up to his knees in the wet mud and sinking faster. Quicksand, he shouted. Help! Somebody help me!